has been one of the most challenging and unusual back to school in our most recent history. The issues faced by the Ministry of Education, school boards, teachers, parents, and students are really unbelievable. School boards were mandated by the ministry to create their own systems and guidelines, and teachers and parents have been scrambling and changing based on almost weekly changes. No doubt this has been one of the most challenging times in education. I have a student, parent, and teacher with me today to talk about how it's impacted them and their advice for our viewers. Welcome to Beyond the Classroom. I'm your host, Cathy Thompson. Mrs. Hannaford has taught high school for 17 years. Her first few years were a mix of phys ed and math, and now she teaches only math along with being the department head. She has taught students in all levels of math, the locally developed program, applied, academic, as well as the students preparing for the International Baccalaureate program. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm excited to speak with you because with back to school being what it's been and with your vast experience being a teacher in the classroom, I really want to know things from your perspective. And so I know with the Halton District School Board, there's the model where the kids will go according to their cohort in the morning to school, and then everyone's virtual during the afternoon. So I'm really curious how you're finding it, going and teaching kids at home at the same time as a classroom full of kids. So let's start there.
Okay, sounds good. So I suppose from the perspective of a teacher and how it's going, it definitely has its challenges. I would say that it now being, in it for a couple of weeks, I am learning a lot about teaching kids at home. We have the technology, obviously, thankfully, to be able to project lessons. We have like Wacom tablets and what have you that help a lot. And that would not be true for all subjects. So for math specifically, it's a challenge in the sense that it's not our usual way of teaching kids, right? So when we're all in a classroom, we have desks together, we're in groups, I'm able to walk around and peek over someone's shoulder and say, hey, why don't you try that question again? Also, students typically learn a lot from working in groups. And so now the question becomes, right, how can we do that in a model like this? We do have, like I said, access to some technology that allows for students to work in groups. In the classroom, however, which is when you really want to spend time with students, that's, I think, the biggest challenge is I am unable to do group work. They're unable to work together and learn from one another the same way that you would before. In terms of teaching them in at the same time too, not every teacher does synchronous learning at the same time. So they'll assign kids at home, like, here you go, work on this on your own. I find for the junior grades, holding them accountable to that doesn't normally happen. So I tend to stream live the entire time.
Yes, I have seen you in action as my daughter's teacher. And I always think, geez, how is she doing this? You have a classroom full of kids who need your attention generally, at the grade 9 level. And then you've got kids at home sitting there watching. So I think it's really fascinating. And you do such a great job at really combining those two delivery models into one. Is it more tiring for you, do you find?
Yes, I do find that it is extremely exhausting. I recognize that perhaps I could not do them at the same time, but I think to myself, with a student sitting at home for 3 days in a row for 3 hours, that's 9 hours of math that I'm assuming they're able to do on their own. So as exhausting as it is, I think it would be equally as exhausting as if after I had them come to class and I had to reteach everything because I wasn't with them that entire time. So yeah, for sure. Definitely, I would say maybe not necessarily the delivery is exhausting. It's actually more the preparation. It's, having the slideshows ready for the kids and having everything projected and organized in this virtual world. Whereas I used to just be able to walk into a classroom and do an activity and we could have fun, right? So the preparation is the hours beyond the classroom is what's definitely I would say, more exhausting.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And in the classroom, now with the PPE and the physical distancing, I guess, like how is that in terms of adding to your role as well? Do you find the kids really just assimilate to it really well, or is it more challenging sometimes?
I think the challenge with that is actually, again, the interactions with students and the ability to kind of also react to how things are going in the classroom. Everything has to be so planned ahead, including my photocopies, right? So when I run things in the photocopier, I can't touch them for a certain amount of time. There needs to be that period where the papers are untouched, or we have to go and get gloves out to hand things out to collect things. And then you have students asking you for help, and it's that awkward, like, got to put my shield on but first. So everything is different, and we can't react as much as we normally would. So yeah, it's that's also very different with the PPE and all the rules, right, that we have to follow for COVID.
Oh, for sure. And I just think the socialization of the kids, I'm assuming they're sitting, a bit farther apart with their desks and don't have that group work and that interaction, that ability to really come into grade 9, in this case, making friends and, from all different schools. So it must be a little bit awkward in that way. Do you see that with the kids? Is it awkward, or they're just
Yeah,
teenagers?
I feel that it depends on the personality of the kids. You can see some that are quite social, and even when they're far apart, they have no problem yelling across the room or, hey, what's up, or what'd you guys do about this question? It's more the quiet ones. It's the ones that don't seek help in this model, the ones that don't talk. Those are the ones you worry about. And I think those are definitely the students that are going to suffer the most, both emotionally and academically. It is definitely a model that requires a lot of maturity. And so then, the ones that struggle, the ones that aren't maybe quite there yet, definitely we notice they're quiet, they don't engage. Group work forces you to engage, right? When you're given roles.
Mhm.
And when you don't have a role in a classroom, I think that you start to kind of fade a little for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. I'm glad to see the kids are back in the classroom, though. And you as teachers are making such big efforts, putting in so much time and energy to give the kids the education that they need.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
really unbelievable, the amount of effort. I don't think a lot of parents understand that. That's why I wanted to bring you on to say, what is it like in there?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would say that I agree. I think kids need to learn. There's a lot more to learning than just the subjects, right? We need to teach ourselves also how to follow a schedule, wake up in the morning, put our clothes on, get out the door on time. There are bells that ring, and that's just the way that life works, right? So I think even more importantly than perhaps just the math, I think there's a huge amount of importance for having students come into the building and learn how to interact with one another and a teacher face to face, right? And so to remove the ability to just hide, right? So I do think definitely there's a huge benefit to coming in as
Yeah,
well.
for sure. And then you've taught math for 17 years. You know what you're doing over there. So moving through the curriculum in this condensed quadmester, 3-hour chunks a day, 2 hours sometimes, are you getting through the curriculum in the same way, would you say?
No, definitely not. I would say that even if you had the same amount of time, so I guess let's say we're not taking away time from the curriculum. The struggle with math is just how the brain works when you're learning, right? You need time to practice, you need time to digest the material. When you're doing math for 3 hours, I guess the question is, are you able to do that, right? If you take 3 hours and you think it's equivalent to 3 days or 2 days, normally you would have maybe 2 lessons. Now I have a hard time moving past the one. So yeah, there's just no way. I would say you have to pick and choose in the curriculum what's the most important, and definitely a struggle for students for sure in terms of having time to digest the material. And then obviously there's the concern as well as the gap that there's going to be between this year and their next math class.
Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you have a quadmaster one, let's say, and then your next year is quadmaster four, or let's assume
Or even, yeah, even if we go back to normal, semester two, it's February, right? Like that's still over a year. And we know that with subjects, especially like math, that's not necessarily the best option, right? It's definitely the safest right now for us, but in terms of learning and the course, yeah, it's not the best.
Yeah. And so before we wrap up, I'm just wondering if you have some advice for parents at home, how they can support their kids who are either in, elementary school, high school, whatever level. Like, what are some of the things as a teacher you would love for parents to do with their
Yeah, for sure. We have this conversation almost every day. I receive a lot of emails. We have conversations within the building, student success, and that's a big question. But I'll say, like, from the perspective of also a mother of my own kids who are, living this as well, I think it's really important for parents to just be really involved in their students' education. So I know everyone's busy and some aren't working from home, but just asking questions. Hey, what did you do today? Did you understand it? What's happening tomorrow? And then also to make sure that you acknowledge those gaps that students do have. So very important from the elementary, especially into high school. It's the fundamental math that a lot of students are missing, which causes struggle in the later years. So I love the idea of having tutoring, one-on-one help. There's a lot of amazing programs as well out there in the community to support math gaps. Even my own kids are involved because as much as I am a math teacher, teaching your kids is different than teaching someone else's kids. So definitely seeking some help, right, from the professionals in terms of gap closing, and just constantly monitoring. We talked about learning skills today. What are your organizational skills? Do you have calendars? Are you following along at home? And that's kind of what we ask of parents.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time and, of course, for everything that you do for all of your students. I really appreciate it. And thanks again.
Yeah, well, thank you. And we'll talk soon, I'm sure.
I really wanted to speak with Jessica, who is a parent who is choosing homeschooling for the first time for her son, Matt. And then she has another son in grade 2 who's actually going to full-time school. And so Jessica is the mom of 2 boys, as I said, one in school and one that's being homeschooled. And I'm really interested to get your perspective on what it's like being a homeschool parent, because this episode is all about back to school and the different choices parents are making. So welcome to the show.
Thanks.
No problem. Going into this school year, obviously parents had a lot of choices whether to do virtual school, homeschooling, go full-time in school. And so I really wanted to get a sense of your decision making around why you chose homeschooling for Matt here, who's also joining us, and what that experience has been like for you.
Yeah, I had been thinking about homeschooling on and off since they've been in school. I just never made the leap. And then in the spring, the online schooling didn't go so well. There was a lot of busy work, and we kind of ventured off to doing our own things. He wanted to learn about computer programming and stuff like that. So I just told his teacher, we're not going to do kind of the busy work stuff that he already really knows and kind of doing it for just to keep him busy, and we're going to work on some other stuff. She said it was great. And then COVID obviously not going away, and he has some medical issues, so we're told we should be a bit more careful with him. And I thought, well, always wanted to try homeschooling. So it's a good time to just kind of jump in. And of course I had the conversation with Matt if he was interested as well, and he was, so we decided to do it.
Wow. And so it really springboarded off that opportunity during the spring and saying, okay, well, I don't want him sitting on a computer all day. Let's see what else is out there, how we can make this work. And so at that time, did you sort of start planning and thinking about the fall and going, okay, and digging up some resources, or was it more into August, September where you made that commitment?
I had been planning behind the scenes because my husband wasn't totally on board yet at the beginning, but I thought I didn't want to make a last minute decision because I knew there was a lot of planning involved. I had belonged to a lot of Facebook homeschooling groups by that point and watched quite a few videos on homeschooling. So I didn't want to be stuck trying to plan a year all of a sudden in September. So at one point I was like, that's it. Especially we didn't know what the schools were going to be doing. And I'm like, I can't stand the what's going on anymore. I need to know. So I'm just going to call it. That is homeschooling. And that's it. And then I watched a few videos on how to plan and went from there.
Wow. Courageous.
It wasn't actually as bad as I thought, and it's going really well. The only thing that is not fun, like everybody else, is because of COVID, because I know this is not really even true homeschooling because we're not having a lot of social time, obviously, because you can't. So we really missed that part of homeschooling, all the kids gathering together, doing schoolwork together. So we do miss that aspect of the homeschooling, but the rest of it is really fantastic.
Oh, that's good. And so in terms of the homeschooling for your school that Matt is supposed to be attending, do you have to deregister them, or like what's the process behind choosing homeschooling?
Yeah, I did with Matt. All you have to do is send a letter of intent to your school board, and if you want to be nice, send one to the principal as well. I never heard back from the school board, but the principal, I prodded him a few times, and he did acknowledge that, okay, yep, I got the info about Matt, no worries. For some reason, he got enrolled in online learning, and I had teachers and different people calling me quite often, and I had to tell them quite a few times, Matt's not in your class. I've pulled him out of school. And eventually, I guess it made its way up to whomever, and we haven't heard from them in a while.
Yeah. Yeah, there was some confusion, I think, across the board in terms of homeschooling, virtual school. Sometimes the terms were being used interchangeably. So just that clarification, And so if you guys choose to do in-class learning next year, are there particular requirements you need to get in, or do you just say, yep, we're in?
Yep, just like if you move. So you just contact your local school and go, coming back in September.
Okay.
Yeah, it's easy. And I know a lot of people worry about, what grade is my kid going to go into? It's always you go into the age class. You're never without your peers. So yeah, nobody has to worry about that.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. And so then for activities and different things that you guys do, what are some of the activities that you're involved with that supplement the homeschooling, but other families might not think about, or like, what are you up to over there?
Well, I'm lucky because I'm in Toronto, so there's a ton of stuff. Although again, COVID kind of limits some things, but we've been to Black Creek Pioneer Village. We've also just gone on outings. He also is a competitive swimmer, so that's been really nice to be able to go swimming during the day. So our timetable is very flexible, so that's been really nice. It's been really nice to not have to rush and make lunches, although I do for my other son, but I did not miss that at all during the summer. And when all the kids were sent home, that was really nice and relaxing. It's nice to just kind of wake up and not rush. Mm-hmm. I know it's been nice for Matt too to not rush and kind of wake up and then get into school.
I wake up 7:40 and just like, oh, I don't have.
It is nice, I have to say. I agree with the not making lunches either. That is,
yeah.
In the mornings, I usually just stay in my bed, stay there, even though I'm awake.
Yeah, for sure.
Most time, even though it's 7:40, I still go and I'm half asleep, like I'm awake, but my body is asleep.
Yeah, resting. And so would you say that your other son is jealous that Matt gets to stay home, or how's that dynamic?
No, surprisingly enough, he seems to be enjoying going to school this year. School's always been a little bit harder for my other son. But he's not quite a homeschool kid either.
Right.
He has different abilities than Matt. So yeah, going to school is better for our family and for him. So that's why we made the decision to keep him in. Although when we come home, we have a ritual of we spray him down with stuff, because of COVID. And but he enjoys going. He enjoys seeing the friends at school and being in school and stuff like that. So there hasn't been any jealousy yet, thank goodness. But we also talk about how much work Matt does, and we don't really talk about our outings. So he doesn't need to know.
Bring home all these souvenirs for him. Hey,
Yeah.
at the zoo today.
Yeah.
That's funny. And so for other parents that are considering homeschooling now, or, there are these different points in the year where parents can change learning modalities, virtual in-class, homeschool. What are some of the resources that you could recommend, or places to start, or things to think about in terms of that decision?
Luckily, compared to, I'm sure, a while ago, there's so much now. And I found a really great resource called Schoolio. And because I'm more of the follow the curriculum type person, maybe one day I'll stray from that a bit, but right now that's easy for me. And I did that with one of the workbooks, because I know the workbooks that people get from bookstores and grocery stores and wherever you buy those like workbook type things, those are more meant for supplementary. Your kid goes to school and needs more homework, needs more help to do stuff. So it follows the curriculum, but it's not very full. And Schoolio is great. It gives you the whole year worth of stuff and fills in all the blanks for those books and works with those books. So you get a sheet, what to say to your child. So it's all written out for you. Makes it super easy. What to say to your child, what for your child to work on, what page to work on, what videos to watch. So I also go through and find a lot of videos to go with what he's learning. So I'm like, here, we're going to watch this video and then we're going to do the work. So it seems to be working out really well. And I've split it up into 36 weeks, and I went through the calendar, and basically he gets all of December off, and he finishes school early as well. So there's a lot of breaks. The days are pretty easy because I just split it up in the 5 days. This is the work we have to do today. And if you don't get it done, that's okay too. We can catch up on another day. So super flexible.
Usually if I don't get it done, I'll do it on the weekend. I don't mind.
Yeah, right, exactly, because you can. You don't have to pause, right?
It's like doing homework on the weekend.
Yeah, just like every other kid, right? That's really good. Well, I just wanted to really thank you today, Jessica, for your time. And next, we're going to speak with Matt here. And we're going to talk to him about his experience with homeschooling and what that's been like for him. Now we are speaking with Matt, Jessica's son. Matt is an actor and competitive swimmer. He has been on such shows as Anne with an E and Kim's Convenience. He is on the upcoming Teacher on Hulu and FX and has a film Maternal coming out next year. Wow, Matt, busy guy. You got homeschooling and acting, swimming. How do you fit it in?
I don't know. Okay, I'm doing this. Now I'm doing this. And this.
There you go. And you got your mom helping you with your schedule, obviously.
Lots of scheduling.
Yes, lots of scheduling. Yeah, I'm sure. And so it must be really good for you being an actor and having auditions and being on set to be homeschooled at the same time. So I wanted to ask, what is your favorite thing about being homeschooled?
Many things. It's easier, and I have sensitive ears, so it's not as loud. Because a lot of the usually the classroom's loud. And,
Yeah.
And there's a couple other things, but that's the main reason I switched.
Yeah, you also said about not having to wait to get your questions answered.
Yeah, there's usually a line because everybody's usually finished around the same time unless you do it super quick or super slow.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? So the sound, like I find when I go into the schools, I just can't imagine being in there all day. It is so loud. And I say to my kids, well, is there a particular thing happening? Why is it so loud? They're like, no, Mom, this is school. It's loud in here. And so I can see how that would be really beneficial. So you can concentrate on what you need to learn and ask questions. That's really cool. And so do you get to connect with different friends in person or online, Matt?
Usually I only get to connect to people after school and after they're done school and after, because I swim 5 days a week. So after for an hour, 5 days a week. So I swim about 6 hours a week because on Sundays it's for 2 hours, but they shorten it because of COVID. Like it sucks. And
Yeah, that's why we supplement with the extra swims when you get to talk to your friends.
Oh yeah. After all that, like 6 o'clock or around 6:30 when we get home, I usually play with my friends, then I eat, then I come back and play with them. That's for like an hour and a half or something, 2 hours.
Oh, that's really good.
Usually when I get to play with my friends, it's like it's on the phone, like playing video games while
Because of
talking
COVID.
on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I usually get to do.
Yeah.
Playing video games with them while talking on the phone.
It makes a big difference. I know my son, he does that too. And it's almost like being together in the same room, playing the same video game, right? And so you are an actor. And so before we wrap up, I really want to know what has been your favorite role so far?
Many, but I think my favorite was probably Maternal because I did my first action scene in there and it was a lot of fun.
Wow. What did you have to do for your action scene?
I was in a car and car crash and stuff.
Wow, that's so cool. Well, is it neat just to be at the filming? I bet I mean, you must be so excited just to see the final product, right? It's coming out next year, is that right?
Yeah, lots of running too, which was interesting. Lots of stairs. Got to be fit.
Yeah, there was last day there was too many stairs. Too many. Ugh.
Yeah, no acting needed to pretend you're tired.
No. I was gonna say, hopefully they got the shot on the first day on the stairs. Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for being here today and being on the show and sharing the things that you love and what it's like to be homeschooled. So, and again, thanks to you, Jessica, as well. It's been great. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I want to extend a special thank you to all of my guests today for their insight from the perspective of a teacher, as a parent, as a student in this really challenging education time. Please know as parents, you are doing your best. By connecting and supporting your children each day, you're making a lasting difference in their lives, regardless of the type of schooling that you choose for them. For more information about resources from today's show, visit beyondtheclassroom.ca. Thanks for watching.